My name is Lisa Shore, and I am Vice President of Secure Future Tech Solutions. We are very excited you are all here today. Our webinar today is called I Thought My Home Office Would Be Like My Regular Office, 10 Myths Debunked. So I'm excited to share with all of you. I have a panel of experts together. So a couple of housekeeping tips to begin with. Number one, everybody is muted. So please, 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 we're going to share a ton of information today. So please put all of your questions in the Q&A box and please put them in throughout the whole webinar, because something might come up or you might think of something and you want to make sure you put them in that moment. Also have pen and paper handy. There's going to be a lot of topics that we discussed today that you're going to want to come back to your IT provider and talk to them about. So we don't want you to miss anything or miss a beat. So please put questions in the Q&A and then also have pen and paper ready to go. So we call ourselves Strength in Numbers. We are a group of IT experts, and we literally span, you can see, the entire country. And so we put together a workshop for all of you today that is pretty much answering your questions. So why are we doing this? What's our mission? So we have listened to all of you. And this past month has been quite the month of change, of transition and evolution. We are now at the point where we're home and we're working from home. But there's still some questions that have arisen. And so we plan to answer collectively all of those questions for you. So remember, Q&A box. So let's kick it off. And Eric, why don't you kick it off with a couple of poll questions? We want to get your fingers going, everybody. So please answer this first question.
So everybody, let's do a poll. So what is your biggest challenge working from home? So I will pop up a poll for you, and if everybody can take a moment, let's have some fun, and we'll share the results in a second. So on your screen, you should see the poll. Please answer for me. We'll give it a minute. Looks like there's a few more people that haven't voted yet. Please vote. All right, let's share the results. Hold on one second. Okay, so the winner is distraction from pets, kids, or spouse at home. That looks like 35% there. Some people are suffering from slow computers or slow internet as well. A lot of people are having a challenge, and this is not a surprise to me as an IT provider, that your home tech is not quite as good as your office tech. And then there are a couple of other challenges. Can you please, in the chat box, can you please put in what are some of those other challenges that you're having from home, and we'll discuss that later. All right. We have one more quick poll for you. What has been your biggest upside to working from home? It's not all lemons. There's some lemonade here too. So let's launch the poll. All right, we'll give it a second as well. Everybody please vote. I'll give you a minute. We have a few more people that haven't voted out there. You know who you are. Please vote. All right, one more second. All right, let's see the results. And the winner is more time with family. That's not surprising. We're kind of forced into it, but I know for Lisa and I, we've been really enjoying time with our daughters. We're during the regular year, they're always on the go, and now we're actually spending some quality time with them. So that's fantastic. And then there's a good mix amongst the other topics as well. So that's great. So there, you know what? Every situation there's a plus and a minus. So spend time with that family because before you know it, we will be back to normal. All right. So let me see here in the chat box as well. There was a couple of other challenges, not having access to documents, checks at the office, etc. Does anybody have any other additional upsides? Please put that in the chat and we can share that really quickly with all of you. All right. Well, we can share that at the end as well in the Q&A section. So let's move on.
So just a reminder, we're going to do our 10 myths debunked now. I want to kick it in with our other panelists as well, but just a reminder, Q&A box. Put those questions in the Q&A box.
All right, let's get started. Let's get started with myth number 1. Why is the internet slow? The most important tool to be able to work remotely efficiently is to have a high-speed, reliable internet connection. Sometimes your home connection might be okay for work-related activities like email, but when it tends to underperform when you're on a video call. You might be experiencing sputtering video, garbled audio, random disconnects, which can be super frustrating. So what gets in the way? Well, do you have kids in the house, Netflix, online gaming, kids using the internet for their online classes? You get a couple of these things going at the same time and you run into connection issues. So what can we do? Well, to help remedy this, first test your internet speed. You can quickly make sure that you're getting your rated internet speed by using tools like speedtest.net or fast.com. If you're in a multi-user household, it's helpful to manage schedules and avoid the streaming apps during an important video call, for example. Another option is to speak with your internet provider. Internet providers are now offering speed increases at no charge. For example, CenturyLink and Comcast will go ahead and bump up your speed during the coronavirus pandemic. It just takes a phone call. A backup option, if all else fails, is to use your cell phone as an internet hotspot. This is called tethering and can help out in a pinch.
Hi, this is Michael Glasser. Myth number 2, my wireless is always connected, right? Wrong. Wireless can sometimes be glitchy, meaning that it's connected 99% of the time, but there's 1% of the time where it will disconnect right when you're trying to do some work and you'll be bumped off your remote computer. So what can you do to improve upon that situation when the wireless isn't always working correctly? Well, one way is to run a hard wire from your router or firewall right to your computer. And what that would do is allow you to plug directly into the internet. This way, you would not be working off wireless. If that is not possible, what you can do is then possibly extend your wireless by getting a wireless mesh extension system. What is that? Well, I'm going to have some devices here. It is show and tell time. A bunch of these devices, this just happens to be an Eero by Amazon, and they come with 3 of them, and you plug one into your router and you locate the other 2 in different proximities of your home, and it will help extend the connection. In addition, it has a couple of ports on the back that allow you to connect it to your computer, so it'll improve your wireless. It doesn't make it foolproof, but improves upon it. For those that can run a hard wire, you might find if you're running off a laptop that you don't have a network adapter inside your laptop. So you can get one of these USB network adapters, which converts your laptop and allows it to use a jack from a cord, from an Ethernet cord, to plug into your computer, which most laptops don't these days have this type, but you can easily pick these up and it works very well. And by doing that, it will help. The other thing with wireless is your proximity from the router. So if you're very far away, that's why this wireless mesh devices by Amazon and Google and Netgear and a bunch will really help that, improve that connection. Most importantly, some of you might have VoIP phones at home. So if you can run a hard wire, the VoIP really will improve by having a hard wire. And that's it for this. Thank you.
Myth number 3, my backups automatically work. Not necessarily. First thing you should find out is where your files are being saved. Option number 1, your files are saved locally on your computer. If that is the case, then you should consult with your IT provider to ensure your local computer is being backed up. You can use Backblaze, you can use Carbonite, both of which are cloud-based backup tools, which means your files are being automatically backed up to the cloud without you having to worry about that. Option number 2, your files are located on a server and you access them via VPN connection. If that is the case, then your files are most likely being backed up by your IT provider on a regular basis. Option number 3, your files are located on a cloud provider such as Dropbox, Box, My Work Drive, SharePoint, OneDrive, Google Drive, etc. If this is the case, then those files are being protected in case your computer at home fails. However, for additional layers of backup for that purpose, you should consult with your IT provider.
All right, my name is Brian Hinkle. The next myth that we're hearing, myth number 4, is my team and I are seeing an increase in emails from our bank, from the CDC, from our customers and vendors, so they must all be legit, right? This is a question that we've actually heard pop up quite a bit, and it's one that was prevalent before the outbreak even occurred. However, due to the social distancing and varying degrees of quarantine that we're all having to place ourselves in, we are having an added reliance on the communications and transactions that transpire over email. Unfortunately, the bad guys, that may be foreign and domestic hackers, scammers, bots that are set up to send out emails to known recipient lists. It might even be your own neighbors who have their own networks or PCs already have been infiltrated. Those bad guys are working overtime during this crisis. They realize that the companies and individuals are vulnerable at this time. And our attention has been pulled in so many different directions, all of us, all over the place. And the bad guys actually hope to capitalize on that by upping the quality and quantity of the phishing attacks that they're using. But we have a number of suggestions to help combat this issue. The first one is to be extra vigilant with email requests that are coming in. This means that you and your team need to first and foremost be diligent about thinking about the validity or oddness of an email. If something seems off or different from the normal processing flow that you would use, you should take heed of that and look into the email before you respond or click on anything. The next suggestion we'd have is to create an internal policy that requires all financial activity, specifically to the banks, to use two-factor authentication. Now, two-factor authentication is something that we've all heard of. That's where you have something you know and something that you have to be able to access and be more secure in the connection that you're using. In this case, what we're talking about, though, is two-factor authentication between you and someone else in your company when it comes to doing bank transfers or bank communications or anything having to do with money. That two-factor authentication may be an email and a phone call, an email and a text message, or even an email and another email to a different email address that that person may have that you're contacting. But the best option was that first one. So we would suggest that all banking activities require a personal phone call, pick up that phone, and communicate with the person that you are wanting to have an activity performed from the bank. This may add time to an existing process that you have, but that added time now may save the headache and the suck-up time that you might have if you're having to deal with a successful phishing or hacking attempt to your company. The next suggestion we'd have is to advise all of your clients to perform these same type of steps If the chain of communication and processing can be extended to the other companies that you work with or customers or vendors, you'll be able to have a web of protection actually be built over everybody. So that can help protect you from getting phishing attempts from your customers. Finally, if you're uncertain about any of the communications you get from a customer, from a vendor, from a government agency, you should look up that entity on the web and get a phone number off of the web so that you can verify successfully calling them that the communication was appropriately sent to you. The next myth that we have is hackers won't target me at home. We hear this quite a bit. I'm not at work, so I'm safe. I set up my home network and I have passwords and I even hide my SSID. These are all comments that we've heard from our customers over the years, and we're hearing more now. And this is understandable. We purchase devices to be safe in our homes and secure on the network, as well as we feel safe in our homes, and that we don't necessarily think of our homes as being having a network that would have much of value on it that criminals would want to access. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. Hackers are looking for gateways that will grant them access into the next bigger environment that they can get. So your home network may not have a goldmine of data or files, but it might be a gateway for a hacker to access your company or your spouse's company or your banking data or your contacts. So our suggestions on ways to avoid this issue are: beware of COVID scam emails. This would be in emails to you or anyone else in your family, the same thing we talked about on the previous slide. And then beware of PPP loan scams for the same reason. So keep vigilant in reviewing all of your emails and communications for any phishing attempts that might be in there. You should also be cognizant of any devices or users that are connected to your home network. You can do that by looking on your router. Most routers have software where you can see what are the devices that are connected to it. You should lock down your network with a strong password and a hidden SSID, and turn off a guest network if you have one, because that guest network may be taking a bandwidth and you may have a neighbor who's accessing it. You should be aware of your family activities online. Talk to your children same way you would about stranger danger and street smarts. Talk to them about online activities so that they're safe in what they're clicking on and they're not bringing anything into your home network that would potentially be a hacker. And finally, the last suggestion would be to use a password management tool. These tools allow you to get your passwords off of Excel files and notepads that you may have on your workstation and into a secure environment where if a hacker even got into your computer, they wouldn't be able to get to your passwords.
Myth number 6, my employee's home network is secure. The answer, definitely not. So we've been working with a lot of people and setting them up to work from home, and most of our clients, their homes, they don't have, and their employees, they don't have proper protections in place like we have at the office. All of us here are IT providers who spend a significant amount of time focused on your security, and we spend a lot of time and money making sure that your offices are secure. But we also, now that our offices have extended to our homes, we want to make sure that our employees' networks are safe as well. So one of the first things that we look at is we want to ensure that everyone has updated antivirus systems on all of their home computers. Now, if somebody doesn't have updated antivirus, your IT provider can extend the corporate license to the home environment as well. All you have to do is ask, and then we can roll it out remotely to your home computer. So that's the first really important step. The second thing that you want to make sure that you do is you want to have a conversation with everybody regarding what is acceptable use when you're working from home on the computers. An acceptable use policy states things like how the computers are to be used, what's safe, what is not, and you want to make sure that your acceptable use policy that you have at work, if you have one, is also updated for home computers as well. If that's something that you need help with, please let us know. We'd be happy to work with you on that. Another tip to make sure that everyone is being safe at home is make sure that the firewall is turned on. Now, a firewall is a security device that helps keep the hackers out, but lets your computer go to the internet. Now, there's two kinds. There's a hardware firewall and a software firewall. I'm willing to make a bet that most people do not have a hardware firewall at the house. They probably have a home router that was either provided by your internet provider, cable company, or maybe that's something you went out and bought at a big box store that really doesn't have a whole lot of protection built into it. So that's why you want to make sure you turn the software firewall on. Now, Windows 10 has a software firewall that's built into the system. You want to go to Security Center to make sure that it's on. Even Windows 7 has a firewall built into it as well. I hope no one out there is using Windows 7 right now because it is out of support and Microsoft isn't patching it anymore. So you want to make sure that your machines are running Windows 10. If that's something that you need help with, let us know, and we can, if the machine isn't too old, we can try to upgrade it to Windows 10, or perhaps key employees, you want to make sure you send home with a laptop that has Windows 10 on it already. Another tip is to make sure that any system that you're accessing remotely, whether it be Office 365 or your bank, has multi-factor or two-factor authentication built into it. Brian spoke about that as well. It makes it pretty darn difficult to get into your systems if a hacker has to rely on getting your phone as well. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. So when you log into Office 365, Microsoft can text you a unique code that changes. You can also run an authenticator app that runs on your phone as well, which has a code that's randomly changing every 60 seconds as well. So that's a really important thing to make sure that you have implemented. Now, with all of us working from home, you know, we have the kids working from home as well. Maybe we have spouses on at the same time. We really don't know what's going on. It's very easy for people to click on links that can send them to bad sites, or perhaps someone is attempting to go to a bad site for whatever reason as well. So there is something that's called DNS filtering. It's probably already on in your office environments, but I'm also willing to go out there on a limb and say, you probably don't have it in your home environments. So essentially what DNS is, it's the phone directory for the internet. Your computer doesn't understand when you type in a website address where to go. It doesn't understand English. But what computers do understand are numbers and IP addresses. So what DNS does is it translates the web address to an IP address and then sends your computer to that particular IP address. So what DNS security or DNS filtering does is it maintains a database of fraudulent and bad IP addresses. So if somebody clicks on a link or somebody's going to a website that they shouldn't be going to, it will stop it. So there are several DNS services that are out there. If you're interested in rolling that out to your home users, that can be done. Give your IT provider a call and we'll help you out with that. And then finally, the last big challenge to make sure that your computers are protected at home is by using screen time on your mobile devices for your children. I have two teenage daughters at home. They're constantly on the web, but there may be times when I want to shut them off or limit their access. So Apple has something that's called Screen Time. Droid devices have something that's called Family Link. Essentially, you can put limits on your children's devices, or maybe even your spouse's device as well, where you can turn it off, or you can limit the kind of websites that they can go to, or how much time they can spend on social media. These are all important controls that I'm sure we're really not thinking about, but we need to, because now our homes are our offices.
Don't turn me off, Eric. I need our internet in this house. So we'll turn the teenagers off before me.
I'll leave you on.
Just a reminder before we get to myth number 7 to please, I see a couple of questions already in the Q&A, and I saw one in the chat, but please put all your questions in the Q&A box. I know we've been sharing a ton of information. So just a reminder about the Q&A box.
Michael again, myth number 7. I plugged in my printer. Shouldn't it just work? Well, not necessarily on myth number 7. So basically what happens is our homes are now our offices, and we want to be able to print from the office to our home. And what happens when you make a connection to your office computer, whether you're using a remote desktop type thing or go to my PC or log me in, it tries to translate your home printer to your office computer. Sometimes that doesn't work if your home computer is not your default printer, or possibly you've got a wireless printer and it's not finding it. And so hardwired, meaning connecting a USB cable, definitely works better than wireless. Or sometimes the drivers don't translate between your printer at home and the office computer. Drivers are the software that talks between the printer and the computer. And without those, it will not print. So what you could do for that is, if you contact your IT company or having some issues getting that going, there's a special program they can add called TS Print for $79 that will require driverless printers, means you don't have to update any drivers in the web, and it will streamline the remote printing process and help make that a better process. We've also seen some clients, when they're printing remotely, have what's called a stuck print queue, where they issue a command to print, it sends it to their home printer, and nothing prints out. The information came across, but the print queue, or the holder for all the print jobs, is just holding information, so we might have to go in what's called clear the queue. Quite often the client can just reboot and that will happen, but sometimes you have to call us to help us get that going. But again, if you're having any problems printing, there's a great program called TS Print from terminalworks.com. You can download that and try that out. They have a free trial, or just give any of us a call for some help on that. So that's it for number 7.
All right, and we're on to myth number 8. Can't I just recreate my home office to look and make it feel like my work office? Now, if you have the ability to find a quiet space to work out of, this has the benefit of allowing you to focus and minimize distractions to yourself, as well as anyone you happen to be on a call with. Now, if your only option is a shared space, invest in a headset. You're going to sound much clearer to your clients, and you'll be able to hear everything that's going on and everything that they say. Good lighting will also help you focus, along with a comfortable table, a desk, or an ergonomic chair that you can work from. We'd also recommend looking into a laptop or a docking station, along with a wireless keyboard and mouse, which will give you more flexibility with placement and help you work more comfortably. Now, one practical tip: create yourself a no spill zone. Avoid that situation where you reach for your pen and you knock over your drink on your laptop and keyboard, and it's just a bad situation. We want to avoid that and save yourself the aggravation. Now, it's also helpful to have maybe a scanner app on your phone, such as Scanner Pro or TurboScan. These apps can quickly scan a document that you've printed out that maybe needs a quick signature, for example. The app can quickly convert that document into a PDF, and then you can email it seamlessly, and this is a great time saver in a pinch as well. On to myth number 9.
Myth number 9. I can hear my team members when I'm on a Zoom or team calls. I cannot, sorry. It must be broken. Sometimes it is, but most likely it's not. Keep in mind that the first thing you need to know is that desktops do not have a microphone. Do not have a microphone built in and will require to have a microphone connected. One example for it might be the headset that I'm wearing that has this microphone. Here's another version of it. There's a microphone right here. It also has a mute button right here. Make sure that that mute button is not accidentally clicked. Another version of it might be those headsets that we use for Apple devices. Also make sure that your microphone is not used by another app. If you run between Teams and Zooms and go to a webinar or whatnot, make sure the microphone is not occupied, quote unquote, by another app. The last thing you need to know is, or recommendation from our side, is to perform an audio test on your computer prior to jumping on a call. One way to do it, first of all, on a computer is simply play a song on YouTube and adjust the volume accordingly. That to make sure that you not accidentally mute. Make sure your speakers obviously are connected in the back if you have speakers. Make sure your audio output is set to the appropriate output device, whether if it's speakers or TV speakers or your monitor speakers and whatnot. Any tool, specifically Zoom and Teams, will allow you to perform an audio test prior to joining the call. I highly recommend you do that. Off to myth number 10.
So myth number 10, I am just going to work in my PJs. No one will care. Well, so while we've been talking about all the other myths about hackers and technology needs and audio, all those other calls we've been receiving, we would be remiss if we also didn't talk about professionalism. And Eric and I had a meeting with a vendor recently, and she had pajama pants on, just like Eric is wearing now. So I'm wondering, how many of you are right now sitting, listening to this webinar, participating, and wearing your PJs? Or maybe you're wearing a sweatsuit because you know you're not going to be on camera. Well, our vendor had pajama pants on, and the reason we found out is because her cat jumped up on the countertop, nearly knocked over a cup of hot tea. So she had a lovely sweater on the top, and then she jumps up, and all of a sudden we saw pajama pants on the bottom. So while she was comfortable, and I know that we are comfortable and casual in our homes, perception matters incredibly. So ask yourself, how do you want to be perceived by others? So recommendations that I want to share are, please dress top to toe. I know that, you know, we want to be casual, we want to be comfortable. You don't necessarily have to wear jackets and all of that every day, but we still want to dress for the audience that we're delivering our messages to. And you never know when you're going to have to pop out of your seat. You just don't know. Be careful slouching. This is the time to really think about our nonverbal messages and the behavior. If we're looking away or looking too close or we're far back, or maybe we get up to make a cup of coffee and you forgot to turn your video off, or you're having a snack. We see all that, and it's a distraction to your message, to your vendor's message, to your client's message. So we want to be as present as possible. Thinking about also what's around us in terms of our background. Do we look cluttered? Do we look organized? All of those create perceptions in other people's minds. We have such a small amount of space to work with now that it's much easier, I suggest, pushing all of the clutter aside so that nobody behind you can see it. And thinking about facial expressions, and if I sat here on the whole webinar really angry or cranky looking, you're going to be like, oh, Lisa's not enjoying herself, or she doesn't want to be here, right? Maybe you're thinking, I don't want to share my time with you, and that is completely the opposite. All of us are together, and we care deeply in adding value and making sure you guys thrive during this really tricky time. If you have noise around you, children, I know when we did the poll questions that there's a lot of distractions with pets and children. That's sort of becoming understood. And the beauty of technology is we can go on mute. We can turn off our video for a moment and come back, deal, and then come back. And that way we're not, you know, creating other ideas and distractions. And the same thing goes for having any kind of side conversations. Proper etiquette says that it's better to turn off your video, and don't forget to turn off that mute button, and then come back on when you can be fully present. So now we've gone through our 10 questions, our 10 myths. I hope we answered a lot of questions for you, but I also see in the Q&A that there are a couple of more questions that have come up. So this is your time, guys. We got you started in the poll, so keep asking questions. So let me start here. First, I want to just make a comment. Susie Rodriguez made a comment that she said, I can work more hours, when Eric asked earlier. Yes, you can work more hours getting things done that have been sitting for a while. That's awesome. Here's a question for the panelists. My laptop is filtering out spam, a lot of emails that are not spam. Is there an easy way for me to change the filters? On my desktop, I could just click not junk, but I don't see that option on my laptop. Which panelist wants to grab that one? All right, Rob, you want to grab that?
Yep.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Al.
I'm assuming that this person is using a Outlook and Office 365. Depends on the component, depends on what you're using. You can double click the email itself, try to open it separately, and then go to the junk. There's a junk button within the message of the email, and you can try to mark it over there. Another option is to right click on the email before you open it, and then there's on the menu that pops up, there's a junk entry, and then you can choose the option from the sub menu. So again, right click the email, junk, or double click the email to open it up, and there should be a junk option on there.
Yeah, I think there's an option too. If you right click on it, like Ayal is saying, you can go ahead and say never block sender, never block sender's domain. And in the future, any emails that come from that sender will just go right into your inbox.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's another question from David Gresson. I have been using Zoom and do not select use password. I thought this would be difficult for clients to figure out. Is this a mistake, and how does the password feature work?
I can take that one.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Eric, and I'll go after you.
Yeah, so it's been in the news recently about Zoom. It's called Zoom bombing, and that's where a hacker or somebody that you don't intend on having on your Zoom call can break in. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you use the password. And I believe Zoom made some security changes where that is on by default now. And so when you send out a Zoom invite, the password is built into the email, so that's there for everybody if they need to enter it in, or they can use the link that's embedded in that email, and they'll be able to directly get in without having to enter the password. So I think that's really, really important. One of the things that you don't want to do is any links to meetings you don't want to share online on social media or anything like that. It's really only intended for the specific recipient. There's been some other security features that Zoom has implemented as well, including by default now, everyone goes into a waiting room so that you can admit people as they come in. So as the host, so if you don't recognize somebody, you don't have to let them in as well. So those are a couple of security tips to use Zoom.
And I was just going to add to that, our suggestions would always be, at this time, everything you can to make it more secure, meaning passwords. It may be a little inconvenient for your customers to use those, but I think everyone's going to be very understanding as we go forward that it's just going to be a part of our daily lives, that we need to be more secure, and that passwords are just going to be a part of everything that we do to access something online.
I'll add to that. One of my clients this morning reported to me that they were giving a webinar, and somebody did unauthorized, broke into it, and put stuff on there that was inappropriate. So they've now implemented a password policy, and it was quite embarrassing. So just make sure you use the password. Very simple setup, and it's a must.
Excellent.
Yeah, one other point here. So our general recommendation at this point is that if you're going to be using Zoom, that you use it for non-confidential discussions. If you want to have more kind of confidential type of interactions, then you might look at something like Microsoft Teams, which is included in the Office 365 suite for more sensitive discussions. And definitely look at adjusting those settings at the kind of global level. The person that owns the Zoom account can go ahead and change these some of these security settings on a global basis. So any sub accounts or sub users that also have Zoom will inherit those settings. But definitely take a look at that.
Excellent. Gordon Scott asks, will Zoom work on a home PC if you do not have a web camera?
Yes, it will. Most of the tools that you can use for online meetings, you will be able to get into. You'll be able to access them. You may even be able to access them via your phone. If you are needing to get on a webcam, one suggestion would be, if you don't have one on your computer, would be to access the meeting via your phone. You can actually hold the phone up in front of you, and access the meeting, and it can be used that way. But most of the online meeting tools do not require you to have a web camera. It's just a preference. Again, as noted by one of the other panelists, the one thing to be aware of is if you do not have a web camera, that may be where your microphone would normally be coming from. So if you don't have a web camera, you may also be looking at the inability to have your voice be heard. But no, it is not a requirement.
I'd
One
like to
thing
also
I'll add
add
to that
too.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, Michael and then Eric. Yep, Michael and then Eric.
Yes.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is what I'm doing now actually is I'm attending through the web. However, because, you know, as I said before, wireless can be a little flaky, I've actually dialed in on my phone. My audio is on the phone, so I don't have any garbled talking. So you don't have to have a webcam. You can watch the presentation from the video, you know, that comes through on the presentation on your screen through the link. And then you can dial in on your phone, which will give you a much better audio connection. So that's my tip on that one.
And on that note, just to add something, you don't want to have audio coming from two different devices because it creates feedback and echoing, and it annoys everyone else on that conversation. So you probably want to mute yourself on one of those and lower the volume on one of those devices.
I would also like to add too that Zoom does have a dial-in phone number, as Michael mentioned. Many other people are using Teams for conference calls as well too, and if you are, there's an additional license that you can add for a dial-in phone number for Teams as well. So if you have Office 365 and Teams and you want to add a dial-in phone number to make it easy for anyone to connect with you, whether or not they have a webcam, I would recommend that you do that as well.
So I have one more question. Please, everybody, I see a bunch of you still on, so please continue, put a couple more questions. We've got more time. We've allotted time for you, so please add more questions to the Q&A. But Christopher Brooke asks, he had to jump off, but he said, what program do you recommend for keeping passwords for use by a group of people that share and need to update them?
I'll answer that one first, and then other panelists can go if they have other tools that they use. We use a product called Keeper, Secure Password Vault. There's a number of different levels you can have for Keeper. We actually have a high enterprise level where we can actually, some of our customers can connect to that, and we can actually share out accounts with those customers. But there's varying degrees on most of these applications. Keeper's very nice, and we like it because our security expert that we have on staff found it to be the best at the time we were looking a number of years back, because you own the keys to those passwords. The actual company that provides the software has no means to be able to get in through a back door to those passwords for you. So that was one of the reasons we chose Keeper. Again, Keeper's great because it allows you to have it push the password and user into a web app as you're using it, so it can automatically put those in. It can also, it's smart enough to know when an application's asking you for a password to create one, to actually assist you with creating a secure password. So a password that is long, has varying alphabetical, numerical, special characters. So that's the one we use internally. And our customers use, and we've been very happy with it, but there's a number of others, and I'll let the other panelists talk to some of those other products.
Yeah, I can add to this too. So we use LastPass Enterprise that basically accomplishes the same functions that Brian was just mentioning. Overall, you can share externally, has mobile device or mobile app integration as well. But it's pretty seamless, easy to use, and you can go ahead and set varying permissions according to the various services that you want to allow access to external parties, for example. So we use that to share, for example, with our external marketing folks, if they need access to a particular, Facebook account or something like that. It's quite easy and seamless to use.
We use the same thing, LastPass, and we also tie it into what's called Active Directory, which is the same credentials you use for your to log into your Windows machine. I should highly suggest that you consult with your IT provider here, and you would be amazed what type of information your users are saving and where they save it on their local machine, in Outlook, in contacts. you would be amazed what type of information they're saving, and that's a huge liability for yourself.
Michael,
Yeah.
Eric, are you using different programs?
Yeah,
Or-
so we use a program called Dashlane, and I love Dashlane. It's easy to use, and it synchronizes with all of your devices. So if you have a PC at work and a Mac at home and then an iPhone, you can have all your passwords in one spot. They have a business version as well, so teams can share passwords as well. So that's what we recommend.
Yep, all those programs are good and very usable, and easily, look them up on the web if you want more information about them.
The one other thing that I would point out is from a personal aspect, I would highly suggest any of these products that you look at it both at a company level and even at a personal level. For me and my partners, what we found was it's a place where we can put all the information that would be needed if something were to happen to us. My wife knows exactly how to get into it, and all of our information would be in there, and she would be able to get that. God forbid something happened to someone that you love, you can get to it. It's also a great tool for those of you who have parents that are starting to get older in age. It allows you to keep that information. If they forget it, you may be able to access it for them, or even, again, God forbid something were to happen to them, all that information would be readily available securely somewhere where you would be able to get to it in a stressful time where it would be difficult otherwise to go 30 other places around your house to try to find that. It's in one place and secure. So again, I would say from regardless of what your company ends up doing looking into this, from a personal aspect, most of these applications at a personal level are free or a very small amount of money on a monthly subscription, but it gives you the ability to have multiple accounts that you can share with other family members or even your parents or children.
Thank you, everybody. One last chance for questions. Anybody else? We'll hang out for one more second to see if any other questions pop up. Well, and if not, no worries. I think that I am very proud of this group. I'm very proud to be a part of this group. You guys you answered a lot of the questions that we're receiving on a daily basis. And there is so much more I'm sure we could cover. So please, I encourage all of you that are on this call today to please reach out to us as your IT providers. Continue to have a dialogue, ask us questions. We're here to support you in any way we can. So again, we're Strength in Numbers. We're Michael Glasser in New York. We're Brian Hinkle in Arizona, Eyal Bishri in California, Rob Schenk in California, and Eric and Lisa Shore in Rhode Island. If you need something, please do let us know. Stay safe, stay secure, keep washing, and please watch out for hackers. Thank you so much for being with us. We wish you a great day.